Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Just a quick introduction for myself. My name is Abdul. I am from the Easter Foundation Academies Trust. At the moment, I'm Director of Development, but I have a number of different roles over there. Starting off with being a chemistry teacher a long time ago, and then part of the leadership team, and then we kind of moved on from there. Last year, I took on the role of being principal and the CEO of the trust as well. Separate to that, I'm also the co-founder of a free school in Bolton, the Olive Tree Free School, whose head teacher is with us today. All right, put her on the spot. And what I'm going to really speak to you about, kind of some of the tools that we've been using as an organisation and in a number of schools that I've been kind of working with. We started on a one-to-one program, mobile devices and stuff a long time ago, 2009, 2008. We made loads of mistakes and we've kind of learned loads of things from there as well. But typically for me, a lot of it, I've kind of come to the conclusion, is not about the devices. So I kind of describe the devices very much like taps. You know, taps are very shiny and you can turn them on and water comes out. But really, the water is not coming from the tap, it's coming from all the plumbing that's behind it. Okay? So whenever this sort of a program is being implemented, the real question that we need to ask is, what does the plumbing look like? The teaching, the learning, the assessment, the feedback, all the stuff that teachers have to do. What does that look like? And why do I need to implement this? What is technology going to give me additionally, okay, compared to what I'm normally used to getting? So that's the bit that I'm going to kind of come at you with and kind of show you the kinds of things that we've been doing. And the bit that I'm going to focus on for this session is around the way in which we're able to kind of give feedback to students. Because traditionally, we've been marking books, we've been kind of ticking work, we've been kind of writing feedback. And, you know, it's true to say that we've actually spent a lot of time kind of doing that with books and paper and so on. So this isn't about becoming paperless, because we still have to write with pen and paper, and that's important. And sometimes there is that notion that if everyone's got an iPad, does that mean they don't write anymore? And hopefully by the end of this session, you'll be able to see the tools that we're using and how effective they actually are. We're big users of iTunes U. We've done a lot of work around iTunes U and the way we've developed our courses and our learning materials. So we've moved away from kind of virtual learning environments and things like that. And really, a lot of our focus and work has been on the way we create our curriculum and kind of the way we mark and give feedback to students. So what I'm going to show you is actual classroom stuff. Okay? So this isn't kind of like model stuff or trial stuff. This is stuff that's going in school right now. So the app that we're looking at is something called Showbie. And I'll mention something about apps as well. I'm not really an advocate of using millions of apps. Quite often you walk into schools and they're using iPads and everybody goes crazy on the number of apps they want to download. And quite often people ask that question, which is the best app for science? Which is the best app for maths? The best app for science, the best app for maths is the teacher. And the way that teacher organizes that learning and the way the teacher uses the tools to amplify that learning. And this is all about amplification. And that's what human beings do. We invent tools that allow us to do things that we couldn't do before. So, let's look at this tool. It's called Showbie. We use it because it's really simple and easy to use. So, quite often, the question comes up about, you know, embedding this and making it work. You need two key ingredients, simplicity and reliability. If it's simple and it's reliable, people use it. If they use it and it works, that changes their beliefs. This thing's working, I can use it. Otherwise, we go back to that time where we actually print 30 sheets of paper just in case it doesn't. Okay? So, I've got a bunch of classes that are here, and I'm going to choose, which one am I going to choose? I'm going to show you a class that I was just looking at earlier on. I'm going to choose this. She's going to laugh now. the Year 10 art class. Because just as I've started this, the art teacher, whose class this is, has just walked in to the auditorium. There she is, Alex. Yeah. Thank you very much. I had to do that. Sorry, miss. Okay. So this is your work, and I'm happy. So after this, you don't have to come and ask me questions. She's right there. Okay. So she can tell you the real stuff. I mean, I can show you lots of other, and we will look at some other ones as well. So this is a real class. And this is what I love about this environment. If you walk into Alex's classroom, it's not about everybody being on iPad. There's art, there's brushes, there's paint, there's stuff on the wall. It's an art room. But what they're using this to do is to kind of amplify the learning, and the way the feedback goes back is pretty cool. So if I look at this one, passions and obsessions, so I've joined Alex's class. So if I was a senior leader in a school, I can actually see what's going on in the class without me having to be there. So that, for starters, is something that's creating transparency. In fact, I would normally be able to do that. So that's kind of interesting. And you can see that, when our students here, they can't see each other's work. I can see theirs, the teacher can see theirs. This is kind of creating students as well. But I'm gonna pick on one. Let's look at Rida's work. What I love about this is the fact that it's kind of giving me a really good commentary. I can see stuff that's happening here. Okay? Now we've got a policy in our school in the way in which we mark work. So that policy is being implemented here. So we give a current grade, we give an expected grade. We have something that we kind of call E, which is like excellent, something that is really good that the students done. We're giving them praise. And then we have something called S, which is stop and think. So that's about making it better. And what's great about this is that once you've given them this feedback, they can actually go back and do it again. So typically this would normally be in a, you'd be giving it on a piece of work, which would be taking a load of stuff home and marking it and giving statements and comments. And then you kind of want them to do something, give it back, and you'd have to take all of that home again. But what the student's doing here is they're kind of taking pictures of the work that they've done and they've uploaded it. Okay, now I'm going to be a bit careful here because what I don't want to do is start marking this, otherwise the student will get a notification that I'm kind of doing stuff. I'm going to introduce you to a couple of things. This thing for me is the simple, reliable bit, but it's so effective. So look at this. Of course, I've got a little pen icon here, and if I tap on that, I can choose colors, thicknesses. That's kind of self-explanatory. I can scribble and write and so on. What I quite like about it is this icon as well. So if I tap on that too, and let's just say I was to put something here, I can now actually type. So I'm not messing about trying to write with my hand. I can actually put some detailed comments and feedback on that particular piece of work. But the real game changer for me is this icon here. Because if I tap on that, and now let me just say, I don't know, I'm gonna make a comment on this part, this piece of work. On the side, I tap there, and this happens. So if I wanted to, and I hit the record button, I can now give voice feedback to the student on that particular piece of work. That allows us to do stuff that we couldn't do before. Because look, number one, we're kind of giving them feedback, that's great. But what this also allows you to do is to continue to develop that relationship with the student. The stuff that you can't do with pen and paper or even with writing, because all that emotional kind of content, I'm happy, I'm disappointed, this is really good, all that sort of stuff, that gets filtered. But with voice, you're kind of bringing that back. So that for me is actually quite powerful. And because, and if I just kind of come out of this, and you can see that, if I go up, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's kind of happening throughout this and so on. And the other thing that's kind of really useful is that flexibility in time. So I can see that Alex, sorry miss, I'm putting you on the spot now, yeah? 10 o'clock in the evening, she's had nothing better to do than to mark work or to give feedback. And that could be different for teachers. Some people might prefer that they might go home at the end of the day because they've got other things to look at, and they might decide. But what it allows teachers to do and what it allows students to do is to kind of expand time and make it work according to their own kind of flexibility. What I also love is the fact that there's kind of a completion track. I mean, all this stuff is kind of new now. Okay, students can see where am I up to, what do I need to do. Okay, everybody else is getting kind of greens and they're getting along, and where am I can kind of see that. That stuff becomes interesting to me as well. And of course, there's the kind of assessment work and where students are up to. And I might just highlight this and say this is what you're getting and so on. So this thing kind of changes the speed at which we can work. It can reduce workload, but where this becomes really powerful is when it becomes embedded as policy consistently across the school. If it's one teacher doing it, that's great for that teacher. But if you're doing this across the school, then that becomes really powerful because the expectation from students, from teacher to teacher becomes the same. And what I also will kind of advocate is if I went into settings at the top, okay, a couple of things on here. Oh, let me just go back one. Here, if I go into settings at the top here, I go to class settings. I'm going to bring your attention to two things. Number one, this code thing. The way this works is not through technicians setting up logins and usernames and passwords and all that complication. You can just do this right now. I could create a class, give you guys the code, you download the app, put it in there, and we've got a class going. Now we can start right now. So for me, that's great, that's simplicity. But you see, you will also have this as well. To switch that on, you're going to be in a position where parents can actually see this as well. So the type of conversations that you have with parents about where students are up to, where their child's up to, and so on, actually begins to change. Then your parents' evenings become a little bit different because the parents already know what's going on. You've given them voice feedback, they've heard that. So now they'll go and see those teachers where intervention is really needed, and let's start the conversation around where we need to go. So this whole kind of environment becomes quite powerful. If I just I'm going to bring up another class, okay? So this is a teacher, it's a well-being class. Students have brought up, and it's kind of working towards foundation. And this particular teacher has been marking the students' work. And again, there's this thing, and it's really important to note that our students will still write pen to paper. They've still got books, they write. And if I just switch this off, the teacher can still zoom in, read, all that sort of stuff, but there's feedback that's going on. And I can see that across the school, whether it's the art department or the well-being department, I can see that the policy is being followed. Okay? Across the board. So for me, this is kind of and this is a completely different subject. It's a different exam that the students are preparing for, but there's feedback that's going on in terms of where you're up to. It's quick, it's easy, it's reliable. It reduces workload in terms of marking and so on. And sometimes you think about Ofsted. Well, there's no deeper learning that the Ofsted inspector can actually measure, because you can see it moment by moment, time by time. Somebody comes in to see you, add them onto the class, you've got a timeline of everything that's going on. So that degree of transparency actually for me becomes very, very powerful. And we're kind of seeing this pretty much, across the board. We've got a French teacher, she set an exam to pass questions. She's doing a GCSE exam. And if I just bring this up, this was kind of very interesting for me as well. So I'll bring this work up that she's put up. And if I just tap on this is an actual GCSE paper. There's 16 pages here, one of 16. Typically, she would have printed out 16 pages multiplied by the number of children that are there. So the impact that we're seeing on photocopying and printing, pretty significant. We're a 900 school, and with our staff, we're looking at 1,000 people. Okay? So you're looking at 1,000 people. We have 3 photocopiers. And that's not because we've told people, you know, you're not using photocopiers. There was a time when we had nine photocopiers. But actually doing things like this is very simple, it's very easy, and it's reliable. So the teacher can actually go through, students can write on this, you can mark on this, you can see it. And if you're using this within a classroom environment, students are doing this on their devices, and the teacher is walking around actually seeing which students submitted this back. You've not submitted something back, you're going to attract my attention, I'm going to come towards you, find out what's going on. So things like this are actually kind of changing the game, you know? And if somebody does something really well, I can share that with another student. Hey, this is really good. You know, if I've got really good practice happening in my class, I can invite another teacher to come into my class and actually see what's going on. If there's an amazing school down the road or in another part of the country, and there's an outstanding teacher that we know, that is great, I could invite that teacher into my class virtually and say, hey, can you verify this? I'm giving this student 26 out of 40. Tell me if that's right. Is that what you would have wanted? So you kind of get this external verification without having to kind of sit down with people and the cost implications of people coming forward and so on. So the kind of collaboration piece on this is pretty amazing as well. And of course, you know, I'll also mention the fact that, you know, the universality of this, because even with our music teacher, you know, if you were to speak to our music teacher, I mean, he's arranged it according to months and so on. If I look at some of his classes that he's got in there, and the way that students are submitting work, there's actual voice notes and content and audio and stuff that they can submit, you know, and they can begin to kind of use this. And he also uses this tracker. He's one of our first that started off with this. And what I love about this is that even though I might have introduced the tool, it's amazing to see the creativity of teachers in terms of what they can do with it and how far they go with it. So he's given his feedback, you know, and then he's quickly kind of marked and given something back, and it's there for students to be able to see. So, this isn't just about giving iPads out. It's a lot deeper. And the development that you can go and the distance that you can go with this is pretty significant. The transparency that it creates, you know, is something that is kind of, you know, something that does need to be considered. And, you know, for us, it's been an offset. So quite often we do get asked that question, you know, that how do you afford this? How do you make it happen? Well, actually, if I was to calculate for each of these students, take one student, how much printing would I do for one student over 3 years? It's far cheaper for me to buy an iPad and implement tools and solutions like this. You could offset that cost very easily. So, it's something that's worthwhile considering. It's something that's doable. It allows for the whole workflow to happen. And for me, it amplifies and gives us the ability to do stuff that we were not able to do before. Thank you very much.